Please be advised, the visual novel contains violence, death, cults, monstrous creatures, and alcohol abuse. Specifically, blood, stabbing, dismemberment, removal of limbs, parasitism, drowning, eye trauma, head trauma, gaslighting, hospitalization, falling, and implied neglect. We've got quite a lot in store. Presented by Fornoki & Co. This is a Spooktober game from the team who brought quite possibly one of my favorite games from last year, who was the Red Queen. This year, we have Lachesis versus Atropos. Interesting to see two of the three fates. The creators drew me to this by virtue of the Red Queen last year being one of my favorite games I played last fall. And the title alone drew me to that because I'm quietly shoving my OCs based on the three fates, shoving them in my back pocket quietly, and I happen to be a really big fan of the fates. It's as a character concept. But this also promises an interesting dilemma in and of itself, with Lachesis, the measurer of the threads of fate, and Atropos, the one who severs the threads of fate. If you're not familiar with the three fates in Greek mythology, we have Clotho, who spins the thread of fate. We have Lachesis, who measures the thread of fate, the length of one's time on this planet, and Atropos, who severs the thread of fate. What could bring these two into conflict? Are they even involved in this story, or is it all just metaphorical? Our story in question sees a private investigator visiting a small town after recovering from a coma. He searches for a mentor's lost beloved, but the very eyes she was born with, those that can see the black strings of fate, drag her down into the darkness of conspiracy. A cult, two priestesses, and the threads that puppet the world. This promises to be a longer one, but I've been looking forward to this one for quite some time, so we're going to see this through. Ooh. I sat on the train, squished between the throngs of people in the middle of the day. Shades of thin black lingered between the passengers walking through the low hum of the engine and the whir of closing doors. You can see the threads behind her. I watched. Her mismatched blue and golden eyes, weary with bags underneath, followed their every move. People of various forms whose paths might only intersect once with mine. Here at this moment, I gazed at them in the secrets of their hearts. He hated her, she hated him. They were hated by someone beyond this enclosure. Lightly with apathy, darkly with furor. The former gray, most called dislike. My hair was short and black with mismatched side bangs, my skin pale. I tied some of my hair into a braid around the back of my head. I wore a brown jacket that reached my thighs and a dark brown dress shirt that was tucked into my brown slacks. Affixed to my jacket lapel were two golden rectangular clips, and to my shirt collar a golden pentagram clip. Aesthetic. Black sneakers and red stud earrings completed my look. White bandages were wrapped around my neck and my left hand. I had an advantage over the typical people watching enthusiast. Professional career choices aside, I was born with eyes that saw strings. Visible lines that ran between their bodies as they began to bicker softly, hurrying away. They were strings of black, strings of hate, a convenient tool that only I seemed to see. Not red nor blue, not fate nor death. I saw a color that reflected no light. Was I mad? Perhaps innocently insane? Reality had many times corroborated my eyes' expectations, empirical evidence toward the black strings of hatred. A light sigh escaped my lips. Relief. Everyone was as usual. Those who hated strongly had strings. Those who hated rarely had strings. Humans were creatures of emotion. As the train started to move, my luggage shook lightly in the overhead, and the scenery through the windows blurred. A stranger sat in the seat across from me. She gave me a cordial smile. "Are you there with the mismatched eyes? I don't recognize your face. Travelers are rare this time of year." politely returned the smile. Are you a local? Most folks on this train are from around these parts, but you seem new. This was the countryside. Not so rural that the trains were devoid of people, but close enough that I spotted a number of rice paddies in the blur of scenery. I was going to a town, small and a little remote, but of great importance. Yet another transfer away. I had never visited this place before. Maybe the stranger would have recognized my mentor, Shoko, the reason I was on this train. I'm visiting from the city, Tato specifically. What leads you here? What do you do? I'm a private investigator, freelance job, although I often work on cases with law enforcement. Just the usual matters, not much to talk about. The usual matters: murders, kidnappings, grudges with bloody outcomes. They were difficult to talk about in public. Technically the truth. I specialized. Is there a case you're investigating all the way out here? I shook my head. No, there was no such case, at least not officially. Justification, you have to take it when you get 'em. It's a bit harder to choose the right time when self-employed as a detective, but personal matters came up, so I had to take time off work. Yeah, things happen. It was a good place to visit. There are lots of tourist spots in the area, even if it's off-season, and hot springs are quite nice. This is the time to visit, off-season. Right? I wish I could stay longer. My schedule's up to me, but the wallet, not so much. The stranger gave me a commiserating look. Incidentally, you're from the area, right? I have a friend who asked me to send her regards to a Mikami family. Do you happen to know anything about them? Friendly conversation, lucid lips. Mikami? Ah, the wealthy family from the next town over. They used to be very involved with local affairs, but I'm not too familiar with them. Eccentric but well-liked. Seems to be the general consensus. Eccentric but well-liked. How eccentric and why well-liked? I transitioned the topic away from the Mikami family while thinking about my hidden intents for this trip. Mikami Itoha. I wanted to find a missing person for my mentor, Shoko. Shoko was dead, so only I was left to fulfill her last wishes. I thought I should do it before I find myself dismembered in a ditch. Pleasant thoughts. That, and I really did need a vacation. You... very much... yeah. Do you have a legitimate reason to fear ending up dismembered in a ditch? Is that what happened to Shoko? I'm concerned. Are you okay, Mana? I'm worried now. The stranger and I made a little more small talk before the rumbling of the train slowed and came to a stop. An announcement played over the intercom. Passengers stirred, moving to wait before the still closed door. Get their items. I checked the station signs and my notes on where to transfer. Oh, this is my stop. Slipping a business card out of my pocket, I passed it to the stranger who received it with both hands. I mostly do business in the city, but if you have anything you'd prefer a private investigator for, please do send my office a call. Have a good vacation. Thank you. Even the stranger had strings. Without speaking a word, I wondered who she hated and who hated her. I doubted we would meet again. I rose to my feet, ignoring my sore knees, and dragged my luggage out from the overhead bin. So the itch.io page is accurate. See strings of hate. I still couldn't get used to being so tired. My heart raced in my marred chest from a little box with some clothes and a laptop inside. I checked my breathing, keeping it as steady as I could. Seeing the doors still open, I alighted the train, with no one behind me. I hurried through the station to catch another train, barely passing through the doors on time. I quietly thanked the inventor of luggage with wheels. After a peaceful but rather empty train ride, I waited at the station until a local taxi arrived. With another uneventful ride spent looking at the scenery and the sky, I reached my inn. It was a traditional Japanese inn, with gable roofing with light-colored tiles and shoji. Rock path led to the entrance, the front yard surrounding it, a beautiful garden. Paying the taxi driver, I stepped out of the car and took in a deep breath of fresh air. I was winded. Due to an unfortunate series of events, I spent much too long in the hospital this past year, some of it not even conscious. I like to think that I put back on some muscle with physical therapy, but miracles were called miracles for a reason, and here I was. Yeah. Physical therapy gets you back to very low, very basic level of existence, I imagine. I had booked a pricey room with its own private hot spring at this Japanese-style inn, knowing soaking in a public one would be difficult, regardless of other guests. Scars. I entered the building. The entryway was elegant and well kept. A bonsai tree and an earthenware pot decorating an alcove by the genkan. The daylight softly shined through the washi paper. The innkeeper greeted me. With only one thin gray string, she was surely a well-liked person. She wore a kimono and had her hair up in a bun. I have a booking for Shirasagi-mana? You're right on time. Let me help you check in and get you to your room. We filled out a paper at the front desk, making idle talk about my trip here. Then she led me through the hallways of the inn to a spacious tatami-floored room where I would be staying for the duration of my visit. A short-legged wooden table surrounded by green-blue floor cushions sat in the center of the main section. The shoji opened to reveal the backyard, filled with lovely, well-kept plants. Helping me set my luggage down, the innkeeper showed me around the room and the location of the private hot spring. Shoko recommended this inn to me. She mentioned that she worked here for a few years when she was younger. We were co-workers in Taito. Melancholy look flickered across her face. Of course, the person we were talking about had passed away. I'm happy she remembered this place even after moving to the big city. Did she ever mention our hot springs' therapeutic properties? Oh. The water comes natural from the mountains, you see. That's why folks say our hot springs can heal aches. I hope you'll enjoy it, especially as you've booked a private hot spring. There's still ample time before dinner is prepared if you'd like to explore the town or have a soak. That's certainly in the plans. Dinner was at 6. I booked a special meal for my first night. Looking at the analog clock on the wall, I found a bit over 2 hours to kill. Before I forget, Shoko also mentioned... From my jacket's inner pocket, I retrieved an old photo dated to over a decade ago. And it were 2 young women, one familiar, Shoko, another unfamiliar. Mikami Itoha. I showed the innkeeper the photo. The second person was Mikami Itoha, the missing woman. She had disappeared in this town, much to Shoko's despair. Shoko was more than a co-worker, more than a mentor, but a dear friend. She was the one whose little gray cells I trusted to share in the piecing together of gruesome and sometimes not-so-gruesome puzzles. On her deathbed, she lamented her inability to find Mikami Itoha. I had consoled her, giving it up as an impossible case to solve, just like many other disappearances. Yet after towing the bank of the Sanzu River, I had a feeling that I should at least try to fulfill that wish of my friend. Near-death experiences have a way of reorganizing your priorities, I imagine. A visit, a vacation, but in the place where Mikami Itoha had once been. I concluded that I would do an investigation under another guise. At the very least, I'd find a few hints and puzzle pieces to lay on her grave so she could put it together if I couldn't. So regarding this Mikami Itoha, is she still in town? I'm afraid she passed away a while back. Mikami Itoha was dead. I inadvertently tilted my head. I thought she was a missing person. Her family members held the funeral privately, but the rain was so heavy that day that I still remember vividly. She's buried in the town cemetery if you'd like to pay respects. Thank you for letting me know. You're welcome. Please call the front desk if you need anything. With a bow, she returned to her other work. I unpacked my essentials. Surveying the room, I decided to go explore the town and enjoy the hot springs in the evening. Was Mikami Itoha dead? I entered the town and found myself at a path with an entrance to a park nearby. Everything was very sparse and simplistic, and the wilderness was very close by. I pulled up a map on my phone to check the locations in town, waiting for the bars of cellular data to show connection. As soon as it loaded, I began to walk in the direction of the cemetery. The air was cool, not too cold, yet not too hot. Ooh, hello there. Deep in empty thoughts, I tripped into a human figure and nearly stumbled into her arms as I righted myself clumsily. Sorry. It's okay. The person that stood before me smiled gently. Mikami Itoha, a girl who looked the same as Mikami Itoha. Different clothes and longer hair and a blindfold over her eyes. Before me was a girl who looked otherwise identical to the photo of Mikami Itoha. Not 1 day older. She had pale skin and wore a red dress with a white collar and a black ribbon. Over that she wore a brown jacket with an off-white lapel and white crisscross string motifs. Is this because I realized I turned on image descriptions. That's why we're getting these extra descriptors. You know what? I'm going to keep them on because they're quite well written. I enjoyed them. Her legs were covered with black tights, and her brown lace-up boots reached her knees. Her smile grew. Nice to meet you, detective. Yeah, I'll keep them on for those who just want to listen to my voice in the music while doing something else. This is for you. You get the descriptions of what everyone looks like. And meanwhile, you know me? A sickly detective coming to enjoy the hot springs, a tourist in the off-season. You're not that hard to recognize as a visitor, I don't think. News spreads fast in small towns. Perhaps that was true, but I couldn't see your eyes beyond the cloth. You might call them rumors. Not completely untrue rumors. I am a private investigator staying at an inn with hot springs. As for the sickly descriptor, I'm not sure about that one. That's all the better, isn't it, Miss Healthy Detective? Speaking with a bright lilt in her voice, the girl before me made expressions quite unlike the still face in Shoko's photograph. How surreal! The same face could convey such different emotions. As I observed her, she made a motion to leave. When I stopped her with my words, she turned around in surprise. Can I ask you a question? Ooh. Oh, hello. Person who looks similar to you. Do you ever have a relative who looked extremely similar to you? She smiled. Is this how city people flirt? Relatives, particularly close blood relatives. Most of them look similar in one way or another. If so, I don't particularly mind. Although we've only just met, I'm flattered. Next words she murmured quietly. She appeared deep in thought. I wonder if you've met my sister. Unlikely. She made a smile of certainty. Taking a thinking pose, she nimbly twirled around on the even ground and faced me with a shake of her head as if coming to a conclusion. The blindfolded girl grinned. You're very pretty, detective. Don't get caught up in trouble, okay? Thank you. I had to apologize to her, as I was sure to get into some trouble. You know, even I preferred not to, but trouble came naturally when snooping around. Still, warm pink crawled up my ears at this girl. She was pretty. She's pretty and quite smooth, too. Very charming. Before I could continue to converse with her, a voice from the distance called out. Priestess! I barely made out that word. Priestess! Someone was calling for her, so she once more made the motion to leave. See you around, detective. See you around. The delicate wave of her hand, she turned away and left. I returned to my walk with more questions than before. Realized I hadn't asked for her name, nor did she mine. Oh! Hello there. Next I walked into a woman of indistinguishable age. She had pale skin, long white hair tied into a high ponytail, and red eyes that gazed calmly at me. Her bangs were swept over her left eye, and on her left ear was an earring with a white crystal at the end. She wore a loose-fitting dark purple howry over a long purple shirt, both bordered with gold, her pants the same color as the shirt. The collar of her black undershirt went up to her neck. Around her left hand was a silver bracelet and a black fingerless glove. Perhaps visitors stood out more than I thought. I apologize for disturbing you on your walk. I wanted to welcome you to town. She smiled faintly. Please call me Keeper. Nice to meet you. You sure are a keeper, Mana Fingerguns. I'll be in the care of the townspeople during my trip, so I should apologize for troubling everyone by visiting outside of tourist season instead. No, we merely do as we should. She gazed at me softly. I hope you'll enjoy your visit. Continued bowing back and forth in a polite exchange. Before I knew it, a tension I hadn't yet recognized dissolved in my chest. I'm not aware of the duration of your stay, but our local annual ceremonial dance is occurring in 1 week. She smiled with slightly more excitement than usual. I would love if you get a chance to see the thread-cutting sword dance. An autumn festival dance? She returned to a stiff and cordial expression. The date is divined at the start of the year, so the season varies. We can never know what the gods want to see and when. This year is autumn. Maybe it's fate you came here now. Thread-cutting sword dance. Interesting. Fate was a strange word. There existed numerous myths and fictions about the red string of fate. What I saw was the black string of hate, so I always questioned what form fate would take. Was it a string as well? I believed in fate. Double-checking my in-booking duration in my head, I found that I would stay long enough to view the dance. Heck yeah. Then I noticed Keeper making a slight glance at my eyes. She narrowed them, curiously. One was blue, one was gold. Heterochromia in its rarity couldn't help but be eye-catching. In fact, she was polite enough to not comment. However, the moment her gaze slipped across the golden eye, I realized she had no strings. Was she hated by no one? Did she hate no one as well? Hate was a strong word. People who didn't have black strings, thin or dark, light or heavy, existed. They were only, in my opinion, rarer than two-colored eyes. A buzzing noise chirped in my ears. Oh, I blinked. I blinked again. Before me, she was still human. With my mind popping back into reality, I realized that I hadn't heard the last minute's conversation at all. Now she looked at me for a response. What was the question again? Yes. I looked towards Keeper, wondering what she would take it as. She grinned. There's a gathering this evening as well. We must have been talking about another sort of event. She took out a note card and pen, jotting down something in immaculate handwriting while holding the stiff paper atop her palm. Here are the address and directions to the shrine. Thank you. Took the paper with both hands, read it over, and tucked it away in my pocket. She had even written down the time information. In this day and age, most seem to visit shrines or temples for holidays or vacations, keeping an altar at home, if relevant, but not thinking too much about practices. I also did that. I preferred it that way. Perhaps this was some sort of pre-ceremony gathering. Perhaps the local religion was one with such popularity amongst the townspeople that frequent gatherings could happen. I completely had not been listening. I'll come visit. Places with many people were convenient for work. Then we'll see you this evening. Another exchange of slight bows later, we parted ways. Step. Passing through an inconspicuous pair of gates, I reached the cemetery. It was clearly built on a hill, with concrete stairs with metal railings, leading up its 3 tiers along the now angular slope. An old, large tree hung over the stairs and covered them with shade. Tombstones covered the ground with familiar, tall, rectangular blocks. Most were family graves, the surnames of lineages etched into stone. Beneath the ground were the deceased's cremated ashes. For better or for worse, coffin-style burials were rare in this country. Of course, I wasn't an autopsy doctor, and my particular form of science needed not a whole body. Thread-like gray strings floated in my vision, indicating to me deaths in a particular family in the last century. Greetings to and fro the dead faded over time. Oh, so the threads of hatred linger when someone dies. Wow, that's sad. They faded slower, much slower than a body rotted. Hatred is more persistent than human life. It's scary and kind of sad, not gonna lie. I eyed the names on the stone, searching for Mikami. For Mikami was spelled out with free and God. Not a particularly difficult pair of characters to read. For long I reached a slightly more extravagant section, if a cemetery could be called extravagant. There the Mikami family grave stood before me. Around it were an array of individual graves, some with plots large enough to fit a body and coffin under. These two were marked Mikami, with the addition of personal names. I didn't know quite how expensive this was, but I doubted I would ask my estate for such a thing. Even having my ashes buried could be a cost not worth spending. I quickly found Mikami Itoha's grave. I am very concerned about you, Mana. Mikami Itoha. Is it just you've seen far too much death? You have such little connection to life anymore that you have this attitude? I'm still very concerned. Alright, a stone with her name, a plot large enough for a body, and no strings, thin or thick, even though she purportedly died within the last decade. Pure-hearted humans were rare. Those people who didn't hate and weren't hated, they basically didn't exist. Hating one was more than enough for a day. Those people who didn't hate and weren't hated, they basically didn't exist. Oh, okay, didn't. It's not. I read that sentence badly. I read that sentence as if you don't hate someone and you aren't hated by someone, you basically leave no mark on the world. You basically don't exist. No, it's so rare it doesn't bloody exist. Was Mikami Itoha such a person as well? Then again, the grave could be empty. Are you here right now? The grave did not respond. Did they ever? We've never met before, but you should remember Shoko. She remembered you. I was her protege and partner. Shoko cared about you. I'm sure if you're not down there getting reincarnated with her, she's still worrying about you. I placed my hands together, giving a short prayer to pay respects. Shoko could have been wrong. Mikami Itoha could be truly dead. The line between missing and dead was often not a line at all. My mentor was a stubborn woman. That she liked her conspiracy theories didn't give me confidence. Regardless, I'll tell her what I find about you. The grave did not respond. I put out my phone to check the time. I could return to the inn or stick around here a bit longer. Oh. Very interesting selection of choices. Linger. Given that I had taken a walk here already, I decided to linger for a few minutes more. I walked past Mikami Itoha's tombstone and took a look at those of others from the Mikami family, taking notes of the dates inscribed on the stones. There's only one buried per generation. Perhaps the Mikami family used a criteria to decide who received their own plots. For example, only the eldest could have a special grave. Perhaps they simply had a thin bloodline, their name passed down painstakingly by each singular heir. Ooh! Hello there! I passed through the Mikami section and spotted a familiar figure from afar. The priestess. Although a townsperson had called her that, the title didn't seem fitting. She seems like a normal gal. As she was in the distance, I didn't bother to call out to her, to shout across the cemetery. Now I wouldn't be as gauche as to do that. I had enough time with the dead body. I departed for the cemetery. Oh, do you linger and say hi? Oh, okay, if she's there doing her own thing, fair enough, okay. It's our first day here, we don't want to rock the boat too badly. Yes. Returning to the inn, I passed through the front and greeted the innkeeper before going to my room. The red glow of the afternoon painted the room in orange hues. Dinner was sumptuous. Beef, probably more expensive than my entire meat budget for 2 months, melted on my tongue. Apparently the cuts came from local cows. I went out for a walk to digest afterwards. Checking the card the woman called keeper gave me, I started toward the gathering. I walked and climbed up a flight of stairs. eventually coming to the stated location. It was a small, humble shrine with somewhat spacious grounds, with usual Hinamizawa festooned with shide hanging above the entrance. I don't know how that's pronounced. The smooth brain in me wants to say shide. The thinking brain in me wants to say shide hanging above the entrance. Dark forest surrounded it. Lack of light pollution allowed the night stars to blanket the sky above. Beautiful. Grounds weren't very well kept. Nature was spilling into the cracks between the stone walkway. A small crowd was already present. I had arrived late. I rubbed my eyes. Was I tired from traveling? At the front stood a girl whose face looked again like Mikami Itoha's. She did not wear a blindfold. Family? Mikami family? Like the other girl, she had pale skin and long black hair that reached her thighs. She wore a blue jacket with white lapels over a light teal V-neck t-shirt, white pants, and white sneakers. Around her neck was a necklace with a green stone, and on her left wrist was a nice watch. Before her sat a townsperson. She moved her hands in a series of motions as if cutting an invisible something. The townsperson made an expression of gratitude. Oh, the girl. I am very intrigued by the golden eyes. Golden eyes. She had golden eyes. I couldn't help but notice the shining color that was the same as my left eye. Another term for eyes of this color was fairy eyes. They weren't just fairy eyes. She had pretty eyes, striking, even from a distance. At the front, she cut and finished. People made a short prayer that I watched silently without participating in. The quiet, formal part of the event ended, and the townspeople around me started setting up an after-party, bringing out snacks and drinks. Like bees to honey, a whirlwind of people greeted me. Kind faces asked curious questions about the big city and how I had been liking the town so far, recommending their shops and other locations. Stumbling over my responses like a newborn fawn over its legs, I was instantly defeated. Eventually I got a chance to ask my own question. Who was the girl in front? She's one of our priestesses. Did Keeper mention the upcoming ceremony? Alas is really good at getting guests to come. Our priestess will also be performing the thread-cutting sword dance. Ah. Last year's was with 2 girls. This year's going to be only 1. Makes you wonder how they'll change it. 2? Yes. Our other priestess can't perform the ceremony anymore. This year's round there's only 1 dancer. Are you sisters, then? They're both good girls. Don't forget you, old codger. They're both good. Oh, I'm getting my old man voices mixed up. They're both good girls. Don't forget you, old codger. To start with, before we had 2 priestesses, the sword dance was always a one-person ceremony. Chatting with the townspeople felt like chatting with grandparents. I made the anthology, but never actually knew my grandparents on either side. With the country generally aging and a trend of younger people moving to the city to find employment, I wasn't surprised to see an older population in this small town. That was also why she stood out. I spotted the priestess not too far away. Her expression was serious. The conversation shifted, and I waved to the people around me towards her. However, the priestess was gone by the time I got there. Walking around the perimeter of the people chatting, I looked for her. Then I spotted a door and paused. Before me was an open door leading to a dark flight of stairs, too deep for me to see the end. No one was looking my way, so my heart swelled with audacious curiosity. Go, boy. What could go wrong? Let's do it. Door was open. No one was watching. Like mystery loves company. I could just go in, and through the door I went, hurrying down the first steps so as to not be noticed. I squinted in the dim lighting and placed my hands against the cold walls. Lights lining the rough stone wall barely lit up the spiraling staircase. All the stairs, including the banister, were all built from wood. I walked down the stairs one step at a time, surveying my narrow surroundings. Down, down, down. No matter how many steps I walked, no end seemed to be in sight. I wondered how many stories deep these stairs sank. My knees began to ache. After the first steps, I had slowed toward a normally pleasant pace, but my lungs still burned for rest, chest throbbing with scar tissue. Interesting. Very interesting. Keep going, I continued walking. Down, down, down. Is this a bad ending? For endless steps, I reached flat ground, nearly tripping as I tried to go down once more. I passed through a section of darkness, eyes adjusting as I walked, before reaching a cramped room with a difficult-to-make-out door at the other end. In the room sat a glass coffin. This was the third time I saw this face decay. Within the coffin was a woman, sleeping or perhaps already dead, intact without a single sign of Mikami Itoha! I approached for a closer look, and suddenly my field of view toppled over. Legs giving out, I tried to right myself up again, with trembling arms against the freezing glass. Drip, drip. Oh! Gasping through increasing pain, I saw a sword pierced through my chest. I tried to turn around, only for my assailant to kick harshly against my back, forcing me against the coffin to wrench their blade out. Vision flickered, spotting with darkness. I couldn't make out the reflection of whoever was behind me in the glass of Mikami Ito's coffin. Instead, dark red from my body barred the barrier protecting her. Twice in less than 2 years. Couldn't handle it. This is the first time he got stabbed in the chest? Being stabbed like this again. This is the first time? All turned to black. Holy shit. No wonder. So that was a bad idea. I kind of expected that. Let's turn back instead, shall we?